Hey, and welcome back to Vita versus 3DS. In this installment, we are going to compare and contrast the Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater 3D on Nintendo 3DS versus the Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater on Vita, which is part of the HD collection. Of course, as you can see here, I'm using the demo version of Metal Gear Solid 3D to represent the real version of the game. Sometimes this could be a little fishy because um, a demo sometimes isn't indicative of how the final product would run. I have played more than one demo in which the frame rate specifically was much better in the retail version than the free demo. But multiple people have confirmed to me already that this demo specifically is indicative of the final product. The frame rate, the textures, everything is the same. And moreover, I've just tried it myself. I've tried the real version. I don't own it, but I've tried the real version of Snake Eater 3D, and it indeed does run exactly. The demo is a perfect representation of how it runs. So yeah, let's get to it. Alright, so right away we can notice that in the 3DS version, Snake's face and hair are a little bit better quality than the Vita version. It's a little bit more detailed, the textures are a little better. However, his clothing is just a little bit worse, as well as the frame rate. You can see the frame rate is much smoother in the Vita version during cutscenes. So to start, what we're going to do now is compare the in-game models. And to do that, we're going to press start and go to the model viewer. Now, for the model viewer, this is his Snake's in-game model as opposed to his cutscene model. And for here, it's a little bit of a different story. The Vita version is higher quality. You can see the textures are a little better, the facial textures, his hair is actually better in-game than the 3DS version. And his clothes are a little bit sharper and higher quality. Here we get a back view too. Yeah. So check out the knife on his leg. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, so overall it's just a little bit sharper and the textures are a little better in the Vita version for the in-game model. So now we're going to take a look at the draw distances in the environment. So we're both going to go around this tree here, and then we're going to point at the exit. As you can see in the Vita version, you see the grass in the exit. In the 3DS version, there appears to be no grass at the exit. And that's not because there is no grass in the 3DS version, there certainly is, as we can see here. There it is. You just have to walk closer to see it. That's because there's pop-it and the draw distance isn't as far in the 3DS version at all. So anyway, so let's move to the next area. Alright, so as we can see, there's a little bit of pop in there in the 3DS version, as well as a slightly lower frame rate than the Vita version during gameplay. Not game breaking, but is there. Alright, so here we can see the shooting controls. For Vita, it's first person, like the original, and for 3DS, it's third person, like Peace Walker. And here's something else to note. Watch as Snake gets out of the mud. In the Vita version, his pants are dirty. In the 3DS version, they're not. So now we're just going to move to the next area again. Alright, as we can see here again, the same story. His hair and face look much better in the cutscenes than they do in gameplay. On the 3DS version, they actually look better in the Vita version. But, again, at the cost of the frame rate. The game's not as smooth. In terms of voice acting and sounds and compression, I noticed that both versions have really good sound. It's not that bad at all. Alright, so here's a gameplay thing. The Vita version, you can't crouch walk. It's really like the original, whereas the 3DS version, you can, just like that. Crouch walking is actually really useful in this game because it lets you move fairly quickly while maintaining a low profile. Whereas in the Vita version, like the original, you have to go down on all fours and crawl, which can get really slow at times. So to take out this guy for the Vita version, what I'm going to do here is use the silent walking button, which is the L button, and it makes Snake move about the same speed as walking very slowly while crouched on the 3DS version, so it gets the job done. Which is why the crouch walking isn't really a game changer or like a deal breaker here, because you could see we're going to get to him at about the same time anyway. Right, so moving on. So here we're going to look at the shooting mechanics again. In the Vita version, like the original version, you can go into first person and really line up those headshots with those analog sticks. The 3DS version uses a Peace Walker aiming style, whereas you just shoot in the general vicinity of a guy and you hit him. You shoot near his head and it's going to hit his head automatically. Not a bad system because it makes up for the lack of the second analog at all, and it was perfectly serviceable on Peace Walker. Alright, so on to the next area. Alright, so just like the other cutscenes, it's going to be the same story, but this one, Snake's facial textures and his hair is better in the 3DS version, but the frame rate and the clothing textures are better in the Vita version. And as you can see coming up, he's going to let out a little grin here when he sees the beehive. That looks a little better in the 3DS version, of course, because of the better facial textures, and I think he has better animation in his face. In terms of AI or things like that, I haven't really noticed any or much of a difference. It's pretty much exactly the same as the PS2 versions in both cases. So 3DS adds a little bit of an innovation here. If you hold the system steady to walk across the bridge, you have to hold it steady. Of course, since here I was using a stand, it does it for me, so I didn't really have much of a big deal here. With the Vita version, if you just go near the edge, you kind of fall off, just like the PS2 version. So that's why I was falling here. Alright, so on to the next area. In the cutscenes, the draw distance problem with the 3DS seems to be fixed too. Doesn't seem to be much of an issue. You can see pretty far. But of course, that's a different story during gameplay. So in terms of like gameplay innovation on the 3DS, it does add that bottom screen for your inventory and for your map and everything, and that's actually really useful. It's actually, I find that's the main draw of the 3DS version, is that bottom screen. You can have a quick inventory and a quick map, whereas in the Vita version you have to press start and actually look at your map and then get out of there, so it gets a little bit cumbersome. In terms of the sounds, if you can, of course, right here I'm using the Vita feed, but the 3DS uses Peace Walker sounds for the guns, which are nowhere near the quality of the original sounds. Like that gun just sounds so much. The Hush Puppy gun sounds so much better on in the original MGS3 and in the Vita version. Also, that little animation that comes out as you're shooting guys, the big blue circle with the three Z's there. That's a Peace Walker innovation. And if it were up to me, I wouldn't have it. I'd rather have it like the Vita version where it's doesn't look as cartoony when that's happening. I'd rather just have the exclamation point when it's cartoony enough. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall, just from the higher frame rate, as you can see, and the better, in-game textures and everything of the Vita version, I would have to recommend that, especially if you're a purist and you want to play it like how it was originally meant to be played. But 3DS version does have its advantages. It has crouch walking and it has other gameplay innovations. But anyway, so it's up to you guys, and if you have either system, they're both quality games on both systems. So I suggest picking either up.